Welcome back, everybody, to the Driven Leadership Podcast. We are here back today with Eric and Mary and Austin. And we're talking about something real special, something that we haven't talked about on the podcast yet. So it may feel like it's coming out of left field.
Oh,
No,
I see what you did there, Connor.
But we're talking about sports teams, university athletics. For those of you who don't know, Eric and Mary travel all over the country talking to sports teams, universities, about today's topic and helping them get to the best version, the best team dynamics that they can. And the specific topic, we have a lot of topics coming up with university athletics specifically, but we wanted to kick it off with player-led teams because as we were talking before we were recording here, that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of like the first main focus when y'all go into a new team, and that's usually the biggest dynamic to go in and address and adjust. Is that right?
I think it's more the focus of the methodology. Like what is that's more the ultimate goal that we're looking to help them produce is, and there's stages to it that you can get into. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I want to, because this is the first one that we talked about with university athletics, and it may seem like it is genuinely just coming out of left field. We've talked about leadership and all that stuff in business so far. University athletics is like, okay, cool. What's the history of that? So I want to open it up, to Eric or Mary. How did Driven get into the university athletics ecosystem of team development?
I'll answer that one.
Yeah.
So years ago, USTA, so the United States Tennis Association, used to send some of their coaches through one of our training programs. And there was a coach at that time by the name of David Roditi who came through our program. And he was in transition. I started coaching him. And he was looking at what his next steps were. He actually used to play for TCU. And I said, look, David, coaches need coaches too. So I've got your back. Started coaching him in the transition. And then I said, let me at your team. So mind you, I'd never worked with a college sports team. I was out on the courts with him in Southern California. And the funny thing, so I'm going to divert just a little bit. So when David was with the USTA, I don't even know tennis. Like, I literally know nothing of tennis. So I'm on, and I just go, hey, I'd love to see what you do. Because I figure, the best way to learn is just go out and see. And so he's, doing drills with these young up-and-comers. And he goes, what do you see? And I'm like, gosh, what do I see? All right, I know human behavior. So I just started turning in, like, feedback and body language. And he pulls me into their lunch. Jose Higueras, who was actually Roger Federer's coach at one time, is also with the USTA. And he starts asking me, well, tell us what you would do. I'm in the coaches meeting just going, oh, shit, I'm just pull this out of my ass. I mean, I know behavior, right? And they're just eating up my words. I'm like, oh, God, please do not, just talk about imposter syndrome. So anyways, so that was my real start getting into the athletic world. And then David had me come and work with the team. So Eric's not with me. Like I said, I was no
with
idea.
her. I didn't go with her to coach the team for clarification.
Yep.
I just know she's walking around USA. She's talking about imposter syndrome, and she's like telling me all the things that she did there, and I'm like, "You've never." I don't even know if she'd ever picked up a racket and played tennis. And she's like,
"No, I didn't."
Yeah.
No. So the funny thing. So, anyways, I go into this program, and have amazing. Like, these athletes are awesome, and it's David's first year with them. So, put him through a program. We end out on the tennis courts, and I'm like, David, tell me what that is. Because I was having them do this drill, right? And it's double fault line. Like, I have no freaking clue. So that was the start of our, journey, so to speak. But they got so much out of it that we come back and we come back and we come back. And it came, I think it was the third year we brought Eric in because it was just me. I have to tell you, okay, this is, me, if you know me, I look at a success of any training if people cry. I had every one of those players crying. It was awesome. I'm like, success.
That is not how Driven views success of a training, everyone. It's not. That's not our measurement. That's just Mary's internal measurement.
Mary's measurement, yeah.
And I'm still like, why? Why?
That's awesome.
So, but anyways, so we ended up, so when David worked with us, they weren't even ranked. Like, they were not even ranked.
So
Yeah,
he was at TCU from the beginning then. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Well, he left the USTA. He started at TCU. His first year, he brought Mary in, and he was bringing her in preseason to kind of set the tone, and go, hey, we need to get our mindset straight before we get anything. She's obviously not teaching them tennis, but she's going in and at that time,
God forbid, you don't want me teaching tennis.
But it was figuring out how do we work with them, and what he really wanted was confidence and fight and grit. And when it gets hard, how are you going to show up? Those are the things, and he still does. That's what he always looks for. Yeah.
I think it's really important here, before you continue with the story, that if you're not in athletics, don't think this isn't for you, right? And because
that's a good shout out. Yeah.
What you're saying here and what you're going through is our story through athletics, but this is applicable as a business leader. This is applicable in your personal life, because it's about breaking through barriers. Like exactly what you said, Eric, is like when the going gets tough, and we see that through athletics, and it doesn't, just because you're not a professional athlete or a collegiate athlete or a coach, it doesn't mean that these things aren't, they just may come to life a little different. So
thanks for bringing that up, and well said. The interesting thing is actually it is the exact same thing. The differences in sports is they have this very clear metric, where business, a team works well, great, they got a project done, or there's some efficiencies in the business, or it's usually a longer term play within business as to what changes and evolves and what goes on. Sports, you get in there and they can handle grit and fight, and they're bringing a different level of self-discipline and all these things that go into leadership. It equals wins. I mean, and it's so direct. I mean, it's just like wins. So you go, okay, we take the same principles we apply within business, you apply it to sports teams, and you just get a better metric. And it's kind of fun, obviously, because, you got this team that's going through, and they're going through the season, and you get to ride it with them. But anyway, well said, Austin. Exactly. It does apply to business. Same principles. Yeah. So keep going. Yeah.
So within the team, the players, it created more wins. Each season, they would get stronger and stronger, because he started creating this culture from the inside out. So yes, he had the vision. Mark Chia at that time was his assistant. They were so aligned within the vision, and then the players got aligned. And we can just fast forward all different things from David thinking outside the box. So in order for businesses, you have to think outside the box. He was looking at, how do we create tennis to be something that people want to come to? He created the Roditi rule, where they could heckle. That was, those who know tennis, and this is what I learned, is that, it's a gentleman's sport, but he would get players to heckle the other side, except for, playoffs or whatnot. He had the number one attendance. There was one, in fact, we went to one of them. They have like 1,200 people show up for a tennis match.
That's huge.
And it kept getting these little successes. It's the 1%. Focus on what you can control, and every season they would get better and they get better. Well, he wasn't one who hid his success. And it's interesting, because I watch, whether it's some coaches, sometimes it's businesses, they don't want to give the competition their secret sauce. And David was completely different. He would start referring us to all these different, whether it was golf, volleyball, or other tennis teams.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
So he literally launched us in athletic.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish we had David on here. Maybe we do that in the future. We've done some podcasts with him. He's just got this charismatic. He's just fun, and he's just great. So you connect and you relate with him. It's interesting that we're doing this right now. I know this will air afterwards, but we fly out tomorrow to work with his team again, and it's for his team, it's like 3 days. He's kind of got this advanced athletic
bold.
program thing that we do. It's
You
a
do
bold
bold with
workshop.
them.
We have the Forge. We bring in some elements from Forge in there too, and we work with them. But it's an amazing program. But what comes out of that, and we do it once every 4 years. We do this program with his group. But what he's put together is you go in there, and this is the foundation for their team. They will have connection and bond and the expectation of what the culture looks like that is completely different than other teams out there. So they have this different tone that's going on. Why I say it's amazing because they won a few years ago, they won the national indoor title. And,
Back to back.
Yeah, they sent us. I've got one of
You
the
guys have
TCU
we have rings.
We have rings they sent. So freaking cool just to be a part of that. But they won the national indoor title. Absolutely incredible. This last year they won the outdoor title. And the outdoor title is kind of a bigger deal. And so he's gone from, they were ranked, Mayor. They just weren't in the top 25. So they were, I don't remember.
They weren't in the top 50. They weren't even in the top 60.
Yeah, I think they were somewhere between 50 to 75, somewhere in that range. And
when you all started with them.
Yeah, but year after year, just chipping away and putting all these pieces together and getting the right people in the right place and learning how to recruit exceptional players and bring them in from all over the world and just the things that he's put together. We're a tool in that program. But what we learned by working with him was how to create a system for other teams. And so we started going and working as he was referring us in, and we go into these different teams, and we just kept applying this player-led team mentality. And really what it has to do with is about developing human beings to actually take ownership, responsibility, and dig in internally into what does it mean on this team. If we're really going to be this, if we're going to win a national title, who do I have to be on this? And how do I have to show up? And especially when coach isn't around.
Yeah.
Right? So how does it, when the locker room, because the coach isn't in the locker room most of the time. Coach comes in, they're right before a match or whatever, and they're talking to him, and great. And a lot of people can show up in those moments, and then you go out and you play on the field. How do you show up when you got a final exam tomorrow you're studying for, you got a match after that, you've got to eat healthy, you got to prepare with your sleep, you got all these things, and oh, by the way, the person I'm in a relationship with, that just tanked out, and I've got all that I'm dealing with, and all that those are the pressures of a college athlete. And now I got to show up and perform, and how do I take that, and how do I lead through it, and how do I have the character to handle those moments and it's amazing to watch over the last 15 years in an age group, which generally, not all by any means, but they're dealing with a different level of maturity in that age group than they dealt with before, because they're more insulated in a lot of ways, and social media also has an impact on the mentality of the kids in that range. And I say kids, they're adults, but they're still developing. And so anyway, so I'm tacking on to your story, Mayor, but it's
so cool. So in 2020, January 2020, so there was a couple years that we didn't work with the team like we had. And David calls me up and he said, my captain came into my office and he said, how do we get to do that? And David had pictures of things that we had done before with his teams. And he goes, tell me about that. Why don't we get to do it? And so the players started coming to him saying, there's something missing. How do we get our team gelled? And I love things like that because, to Eric's point, it's not always the coach. The coach doesn't drive. They drive the vision. They have standards.
Yeah.
But if a team doesn't buy in, if the team doesn't understand, you're not going to get kids raising their hand going, we need something more. Or, you look in the business world, the team, you get disengaged, you get quiet quitters, you get loud quitters. But if you really want an engaged team, whether it's in athletics or in the business world, that's where the player-led team comes in. They support that vision. They fight for. You talk about psychological safety and trust, but there's this commitment to a bigger cause with each other.
Yeah, I think. I'm sorry, Connor. Before we go forward there, I was just going to say, before we go off of David's story, because I want to use him, and I thought it was really interesting, kind of playing this together. He had to be the right coach.
Yes.
Meaning, to create a player-led team, the coach, to your point, is responsible for creating that safety in that environment. And what I've found is working with other coaches or being a coach at different times, not at the same level. David, I coached my daughter's 10-year-old soccer team. Totally different. But
not always.
Everyone's got to start somewhere.
We still put them through a bold class, though.
Yeah, we had them climbing ropes course at 10. They all quit the next day. But so you have to be the right coach and create that place and environment. And so, what were the things that David did really well in order to create that place and that safety and that opportunity? But then also, if we are a manager and we may be thinking right now, or we're a leader and we're going, hey, my team isn't player-led. I've been doing this. What are the things that I need to do or can do to start creating that momentum?
I think it's worth circling back around, and because this was somewhat, I understand the term player-led team. I can grasp the concept, but like at a practical level, what does that really mean, and what does that look like for those who may not be in the athletic world? And I know that's like 3 questions to tackle, but
so if we don't circle back, so Mary, if you'll take what David did differently, and then I'll tackle where Connor's going with that. I like that.
So David was hungry, and he was humble, and we were on coaching calls every week. So he was diving into his mental mindset. I would go through his players. They did the Intermetrics Advanced Insights. I would teach him how to communicate differently with each player. We would process things that happen in a match or on practice, so I was his sounding board, but at the same time he was doing the work. And then even getting clear on roles. So there was a time that we went to a coffee shop. He came out of Texas. He flew back to California. This is when we were living there. And we actually sat down and we mapped out the things that he loved. So vision. So he did vision, his goals, and roles. And everything that he loved, he put it in a bucket. Everything that at that time it was Chia loved, put it in a bucket. So there was such an alignment. And then figuring out who was going to fill in the gap. You talk about somebody, though, who was hungry to do something different. It started with him, and he did the work. And it wasn't always perfect. There's times he was frustrated. I'm like, hold on, David, get your head out of your ass. But he wanted, and I look at the best business owners I've ever met is they hire coaches, and they do the work. There's an accountability system. We've had coaches that have been referred to us, and whenever we do a coaching program or a athletic program, we require that the coaches are in there with the players. So they're doing the same thing that the players are doing, and that's how we set it up. And we've had a couple coaches like, yeah, we don't do that. Like, you're not our people. If it's top down. It's top down.
So it's not just David. It's a coaching profile, right? So that really does this well. Where David excels, okay, God, David, if you watch this, your head is going to be
so big.
We're just going to bleep his name out, so he does. Nobody actually knows.
Nobody knows who it is. Okay,
yeah.
No, so where Mary's going is the same place I went to before you started talking. Is when Austin asked that question. Is that it is the coach wanting to learn and grow on themselves. They're exploring their strengths, their weaknesses. They're being honest about it. They're digging into it, and they're raising their lid. Okay, so if the coach is not doing that, if the coach is not looking for ways to elevate and advance themselves, and they just want others to advance themselves because they have it all together, it won't work, period. Yeah. It just will not. Even to the point where we worked with some teams for years where the coaches are working on themselves, they're getting better, they're doing all the things. And then one of the coaches will be like, they're kind of tapped out. They got something going on in their personal life or whatever's taking place, and they stop working on themselves, and we watch the team plateau. It happens. It doesn't matter if other coaches are. One on the coaching staff is not aligned with having this growth mindset. I'm going to get better. They don't get there. So that's one. 2 is they have to not be doing it completely just for the status and significance. So if a coach, a lot of times people get into coaching because they want to be the man or the woman. It's like, I want the accolades. I want to be in charge. I want that stuff. Well, all that's typically stemming from insecurity. It's like, I need to have the status and all this because internally I'm not feeling the status and significance of who I am, or I've got whatever's going on. So when you've got that paradigm taking place, they can't give up the responsibility. They can't give up the accolades in a way that truly propels people forward. Another amazing example of somebody that fits this is a guy named Boomer Saya. He is currently
Clemson now.
Yeah, he's at Clemson. He's the women's tennis coach over there. And, this guy, I mean,
Heart.
Holy cow, he's just an amazing human being. But it's the same thing, right? He's working on himself. He's pushing himself. He's getting his coaches and all them. They're working on how well do we work together, and they're setting the tone. And when they're off, they're having the hard conversations and they're working through it. You get a coaching staff and group that the head is not working on themselves and that they're not working on how they work together. You can't get a player-led team. You can't. So if the coaching staff has disagreements on how it's they can't handle conflict well. All these anyway. But
that's the same in business. You know, a leader in an organization, and the leadership is not on the same team, and now you wonder why your people why they're not performing.
Yeah, it's a trickle down through and through.
But now the third step is the kind of technical side. So we get the right person with the right mind frame. Third step is that they change the shifting from getting their players to do something, and this is the same thing in management. Instead of getting them to do something, I want them to think and take action and responsibility. I want to coach them as to how to do that. So the coaching stops being about, you need to stop arguing with them because that's that's what I need to happen. And it gets into emotional intelligence and how you're processing conflict and what you're doing when you're feeling stressed and fear is setting it, whatever's going on, you start helping them process through that so that they are now skilled and can handle it different. So when you're not in the locker room, they're not sitting there going, it's okay that we talk crap to each other and put each other down when coach isn't around. They're like going, that's not how we show up. Yeah. You know, and they have the skills to do it. So those are, to me, the three parts. I don't know if you'd add to that, Mary.
Yeah. No, I was just, as you were talking, we're not giving away stories or teams, but we actually had a couple of teams that kicked us out of the room, us and the coaches, so they could solve the issue before bringing us back in. And you talk about a player-led team, they're going to have those hard conversations because the coach has provided this environment to create it, right? It's the bar.
Yeah.
It's the standard.
It's the expectation. Okay, so going back to what is player-led team? That was your question, right, Connor? Okay, so player-led team is this concept of it. There's a lot of ways to define it. To me, the way I define that is very similar to what Mary was saying and what we're talking about there, is that it is they are making the decisions on how they show up, who they are, in an exemplary way. They are pushing performance or pushing expectation. And when I say they, I'm talking the players.
The players,
You know, they're setting the tone and the bar. And so what the coach's role becomes is setting the vision. It's encouragement. It's when it's not up to performance and they're doing their best to help that player, the players are, and it's not getting there, the coach is definitely the safety net behind that and they're working through it. But in an ideal scenario, which, by the way, no team is an ideal scenario, you're constantly working on this. It never gets there. As adults in business, you can absolutely get there. With a college sports team, with 18, sometimes 17-year-old freshmen walking in the door, with all the way up to like 24, 25-year-old graduate students, and that's your range, and the growth that takes place in there.
It's changing every year.
Not only every year do the dynamics change, but every year their ability to manage this. I mean, the human brain is still developing up till 25 roughly, and a lot of the things you're learning there at the end is the rationalization and being able to handle the emotional load of all the things, being able to turn that into rational thought. So it's a hard age to put all this pressure on them. But the player-led team is the one where the players are managing the culture. The players are taking responsibility for the culture and how they show up. And it's truly me holding, if you're a player, I'm holding you accountable, you're holding me accountable, but not in like a you need to do this way. It's in it. Sometimes it is, but usually it's in a way of encouragement and reminders of like going, man, you got more at practice today. You can bring it. I know you do. And they're pushing each other in that way.
And so for the culture piece, it's the players are held responsible for maintaining the culture that the coach has given them. Like the coach has to form the vision, and it's a pass the ball to the team rather than because I guess the antithesis of what you're saying is that coaches hold on to the culture and they hold the weight of trying to maintain it and keep everybody engaged in it. But the difference comes whenever you pass that to the players and you give them the responsibility. Is that the
sort of
vibe?
The way you said that? So the coach determines the vision. The coach determines the expectations. The coach, so they're setting the tone. We show up to practice. This is what it looks like. This is where we're going. We're doing all that. The accountability and the discipline to performance and the striving of reaching those standards in a true, completely player-led team is typically 90% of that is held by the players. So it's the culture is the makeup of all of this. It's everybody's behaviors, personalities, and actions and more all wrapped up into this.
Yeah.
But the culture's laying the coach is laying the guidelines for what they want the expectations to be. I wouldn't call that the culture that they're holding.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
We actually do a awesome process with all of our athletic teams, and it's a high performance team. And the team comes up with what it looks like to have the best team. So they look at attributes, and then they drill it down into what they want to stand for. They rank it, they have discussion, they have actions. And that really becomes it. So the coach has a vision, but now the team is bought into this is what we are committed to doing this year. And it is incredible. Some of the stories, some of the things that have happened as a result, because they start to hold that bar. They have, it's the vision, right? They know where they're going. They know how to get there.
Yeah.
So far in this player-led team world, I've heard clarity of vision. I have heard clarity of roles. I have heard even there holding accountability, right? So we see, these are the leaders' jobs. We see that these are the coach's responsibility to make sure that happens. Expectations are clear, etc. For the teams that you go into that those things aren't set, where do you go first?
So the program that we currently do, the typical program, this one we're about to do with David is I call it it's the advanced version because it's basically we're doing bold with these kids for 3 days. But the typical program we go in, first thing is coaches go off to bold. Okay. I know we talk a lot about bold on here, but bold is a game changer. It is a silver bullet in a lot of ways. I mean, it's like you get in there and you got somebody that walks out and they are you make it through that process. There's no way you're doing that without being somebody who's looking to raise your own lid and you're looking for the growth opportunities and you're doing things different. Like it's really a game changer. So they go through first step, coaches go through that program, preferably the whole coaching staff. Budgets may limit that. And if they do, then we just get especially first year, we just get the actual head coach, right? But that's where it starts. They go to bowl. They come out, and now we take the advanced insights, the intermetrics assessment. The entire team takes it. The entire coaching staff takes it. And so we can start working with them almost immediately from that point where we can start going through that. As a matter of fact, Clemson, we're not working with Boomer's team till January, but we're working with them right now on the communication, understanding his players, understanding the personalities, what motivates them, what drives them. And he's already been through bold and has all these applications going in. So we're starting to get the momentum, and we're doing light touch points of coaching the coach prior or the coaching staff, depending on how deep we are with them and how well we know them. Then when we go in, we do 12 hours with the team. Our program for creating player-led teams is not about the players. It's about the coaches, because the coaches create player-led teams. Players step into that vision and they start to operate it, but whether the coaches create the room and they are coaching on the day-to-day in a way that develops players into taking the responsibility and being a player who leads is what makes the magic happen. So our whole program is the coaches have to be the ones that are growing and developing and following through with their commitments and doing all these things and having this amazing team within a team of the coaching staff. And then we go in for 12 hours and we'll work with the players. The goal of that 12 hours is a couple things. One is to help them grow in general within some key metrics of emotional intelligence: empathy, emotional intelligence, confidence, and others. But main focal point, we're helping the players grow in those kind of skill sets. Then we are also, as Mary was saying, helping them identify, this is what our team, this is the best team out there, kind of what the attributes are that really matter. Here's where we rank in comparison to those and what it would take to get bigger and what are the action steps to do that. And they do that through player dialogue versus coaching dialogue. So they're coming up with, okay, we really suck at grit. Like that's their word. And they come up with their words, grit or fight or handling stress and whatever the words are they use. And then they're like, we're terrible at it. Last year, every time we got to the end of the game and it was tied and we were going to go into overtime, we crumbled. Why? Yeah. And they're talking about it. Why did we crumble? Well, it really comes down to I doubt myself, and I feel like you guys aren't going to like me. And those are the type of conversations start showing up because at that age, we care so much about our tribe. We care so much about the people around us. So they start getting acceptance for who they are instead of who they think that people want them to be. And those type of conversations are happening in the training. And so in result, they have fun. Sure. They connect on a team level. You can call it team building. That stuff happens. I always think that stuff is, it can be fleeting unless it's reinforced. We had a great experience together, but then tomorrow we come in and you don't show up for practice. That's gone. Yeah. So, but they get clear on who are we as a team, what are we working on, and the players get committed to what they're going to bring. And then the coaches are just reinforcing that and supporting that through the season and going, hey, you guys said you're going to work on grit, and this is what I just saw at practice. What are we going to do different next time? Instead of going, you suck, you didn't bring it today, it better be here tomorrow. That's a total, one is control, and one is not a player-led team, and one is what are you going to do about it? That's a player-led team. And they come back with things, right? They come back with real things that say, I'm going to do this different.
And they also focus on the controllables. So when you talk about vision and all of this, they get really clear as an individual, as a player, even as a coach, what can they control? Because so many times when you're in a game or a match, things are out of your control. And so we get back into the player-led team with the behavior, the mindset, the support. Hey, get your head up. Story. David was the one that taught us about the power pose. So those of you who've ever heard us talk about the power pose, Amy Cuddy, it was one of our coaching calls. He goes, oh my gosh, and this is back in whatever, 2013, 14. So the team, we would create these different, whenever we work with teams, they have a power pose and it changes their energy. Eric and I were at one of the matches and there was, the match was on the line and this guy, his body language was off and you hear them yelling, power pose. And he changes it, gets in his power pose, and it's an open body posture. Well, in tennis, which I do know, is that when you set, you're in a closed body posture. So the guy starts jumping up and down in his power pose. Well, it startles the opponent, and the guy shrinks, and he comes back, and he wins, and he wins, and he ends up winning the match. He wins his set, he wins the game, he wins the match. But that happens all the time. So you get focused on a controllable, you get people who support, who are willing to give feedback, it becomes fun.
Yeah. I do want to circle back around because Eric, you were talking about the what player-led teams look like. We got into accountability. What happens, so the coach gives accountability of the team to the players. What does that allow the coach to then do? Like they're passing something off in effect. What room does that allow for the coach in their performance, so to speak, as a coach?
I have to say it works the opposite. So if you're really going to develop a player-led team, it actually adds more to the coach's plate. So what they're doing is they're just shifting the conversation. So instead of going around, a visual on this might be a coach-led team is one that is constantly running around and looking for where's the holes in the boat, and they're constantly plugging those. You didn't show up for practice. Get your act together. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. That's the coach-led team. Yeah. The player-led team is they're talking to all the people in the boat, and they're going, here's how you patch this. Okay? And they're going, there's a lot more teaching. You've got to be teaching people how to lead. And so it just becomes, instead of solving the problems, you're teaching people how to solve their problems, and you're preparing them for random things. It's like, oh, this person's, boyfriend or girlfriend just went sideways on them. They're a mess. It's our star player. The coach can come in and go, hey, toughen up. You got this. Or be sincere and be like, hey, I hear you, and all that stuff. But the coach isn't going to get them there. The person that's going to get them there is their roommate who actually cares about them, who knows everything that's going on, that might not even have to say a word, but it's just like looking at them like, this sucks, and let's take it out on this game, and let's go make it happen. And now they're really in it, and they're showing up for the moment. That's the difference. So I don't think it frees them up. I think it's actually more work. I think that's why it requires the coaching staff to all be on the same page. And they're helping each other. It's like, hey, I'm seeing this is going on. Okay, I'll talk to them in the one-on-one I have with them this week. In your one-on-ones, it's not just, hey, here's what's going on in my life. It's actually, it's going, or here's what's taking place and what I need you to do on the field or on the court or whatever. It's like going, okay, let's talk about you and how we develop you as a human being and how you develop into a leader on this team. How are you handling the conflict? What are you doing in these situations? So I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but it's
no. I mean, I'm operating fully in assumption right now because I am also new to this world. So but it makes a lot of sense. Then when you think about it, like it's the same in a business, like we've been saying, where it takes a lot more grit. There's a lot more risk involved as a leader when you put that accountability on your team because you're taking the control out of your hands directly.
Interesting. So I would argue the opposite side of that. I would actually say it's less risky.
Well, I guess risky in the sense of like you're trusting your team to deal with the issues rather than like in my own way, I'd be like, I know I can come in and fix this, but I'm going to trust my team to fix it. And that's my perception of like increased risk of like, well, what if there's a more mess made that then they have to clean both things up now.
That's actually usually what happens. Okay, so there is more mess made. So we learn through failure. Yeah. Okay, and the problem is you're like, well, you can't fail on your season. You can't, if it's a business team, I can't fail on my team. I can't do that stuff. So what happens is the responsibility moves from being the coach. The coach is ultimately responsible. They are. But the responsibility moves from the coach to now being us. And so when it's not working, there are so many more levers to work with than, because the reality is the coach can't solve most of these problems. Yeah. You know, so the coach can go, coach can get a short-term result. Coach can come in and let's say it's halftime and we're down and they scream at us. That doesn't go away. I mean, my coaches in college and high school and all that, we had the moments. It's like, hey, you guys need to get your shit together. Yeah, okay. That's okay. That's still there. Right? We're talking about all the other, which is the vast majority of time. What we're doing is we're saying, you're responsible for that. Okay, and on the field, okay, and the coach is just there while the coach is present or whatever's going on. But typically when a coach has to get involved or a business leader has to get involved in any type of thing that is tearing the culture or the team or their inability to focus on all being at a high performance, when they're brought in, all the damage has already been done. So it's more risky to me to wait till something breaks to go fix it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I get what you're saying. I'm just like, man, if you let a team through control, which is the other way, this is a democratic style of leadership, which is player-led teams. It's bringing them in, and we're all solving the problems together. If you lead through autocratic, which is control, which is dictatorial, which is telling, which is
old what school. Connor said, because I just want to tell them.
Right? But that's old school coaching. And there's plenty of coaches that do it. Okay, and sometimes you need to, by all means. It's an emergency. It's halftime. We're down. You got to take control. You got to get in the driver's seat. I'm not saying that doesn't still exist. Yeah. But the majority of time, we want to bring them into it, and you develop them. And that way, when they fail, we're all failing together, and we're hopping in, and we're solving this together versus you, Connor, you blew it. You didn't shoot right. You didn't do this or whatever, and it becomes about them. And by the way, as Mary said, every season, every NCAA season, I don't know how, it'd be interesting to see how many teams we worked with over the years. Every single one has this moment. And it may be a day, it may be a week, it may be whatever, but they have this spot in there where they're going to hit massive adversity. And it doesn't show up the way you think it will. It's going to show up, it's going to hit them completely sideways. And it's going to take them off their game, and everybody's going to take it off their game. And the issue is not, is it going to happen? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
The issue is, when it happens, how do we respond? How do we step into this? How do I show up as a coach? Are they prepared for it, and they're empowered enough to where they know they can take the action required and are expected to? And how do we still hold the high performance? How does all that happen? That's all the work we're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're building them for. How do you handle the adversity? There's a team. I won't get into the name of it. We just worked with them this year, and it was a deep training, man. They had some real silos going on around some really big issues. Everything from, we had a full discussion on how racism was taking place in the team. I mean, it was like, and we're talking 30, 40 players, which is a great thing for a 50-year-old bald white man to lead, but it was awesome. It really was. Yeah. And why it was so awesome is because people were being real and authentic and willing to have these really hard conversations, but you don't solve all those in 12 hours. It's how do we continue and work with it, right? And they've had some big bumps, but man, because they're starting to deal with this stuff. They got players that are like, I don't like her. I don't, and they're kind of in that space, and they're working through it. They got players that are like, no one's ever listened to me before. Why are they listening to me now? Like, all these things that are going on, but they're working through it, and they've had some really cool resolution that's happened. Of course, then they had a big bump in their game where they, anyway, I don't want to get into it, but
but the players came together and started to resolve it internally. Like when they came to the coaches, they'd already discussed it. They'd already had a solution.
Yeah. So shift that to business. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
A manager that just comes in and fixes everything for them, doesn't have a group of people that come with creative ideas. They don't feel like they're part of it. They're not connected to the overall vision. So what are they doing? They're waiting for manager Bob, or there's Bob. I brought him in. Not my Uncle Bob.
There it is.
They're looking for the manager to come in and to solve what's going on, and they just live at status quo. It's the same thing on a team. They come in, they're just kind of floating, waiting for the coach to fix it. When it's my responsibility to fix it, it changes everything.
Yeah, huge shift.
And I also believe one of the core components of creating a player-led team is that the coach or the leader has to do what they're asking the players to do. It is being authentic. And there's that word again that shows up on every one of our podcasts, because we know, and we've seen it over and over, that when a coach is willing to do what they're asking their players to do, there's uber respect. But if the coach is asking the players to do something, or the players have set, this is what we're going to do, and the coach doesn't follow through, they're not bought in.
It was that point. We got to work with a swimming and diving team. And I remember this coach went off the bowl and came back, and he's literally almost said exactly that up in front of the room. He's standing there in front of his group. He goes, this year's different. He goes, this year I'm going to own it, and I'm going to care about your advancement. I'm going to be in it with you. And I don't remember all the words he said, but it was this heartfelt, like, you know what, we're doing this together and I'm in it, versus whatever he was doing before.
Yeah.
They had the most incredible year. I mean, it was off the charts what they did.
Because then he lived up to it.
Yeah,
he actually did it.
It wasn't that they went through the year and everything went right. It was that it was like, I'm in this with you and you're in this with me, and they're holding. I mean, swimming and diving is you're talking 50, 60 people.
Gosh. It was the biggest train. There's 70, almost 80 people in that room.
Oh, okay. When you count the staff and all of that stuff,
and 10 coaches.
It's just a different mindset. When we all are in this together, and instead of it being, these little silos that pop up, and we're actually rowing in the same direction, and we're holding each other accountable versus, the coach having to do it all, you get something different. I mean, it's that simple.
I feel so, I kind of sitting here in this for the last little bit, just being so grateful that I've gotten an opportunity, and I could have never have said, we're a player-led team, and that was the intention. But I've been on some player-led teams, and it feels different. Yeah. It feels different kind of stepping into a leader within that team at different points, and then actually being the leader of the player-led team. And just going through those different seasons, I'm literally thinking about the journey here. And it's so interesting because I could never have put it into words. But that is the struggle that I see and I hear all of the time. Mm-hmm. When accountability's tough, when feedback is really hard, when things aren't hitting the fan, or why can't they be creative? Why can't they solve problems? Why can't they do this? Why can't? And you think about it, I rarely had to go into that vault because the team would come to me and say, hey, this is something I've been thinking about, and I don't know where it fits in, but I'm really working on this. And thinking about that place, or even holding me accountable and all those things. If you were going to start over, and I'm not saying Within Driven is not like this or anything, or if you were going to build a coaching team or whatever, what's the one action you'd take today to start building a player-led team?
Go to Bold.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, but okay. So let's take us out of it and not be self-promoting. I went same place. It is the leader has got to figure out how to level up themselves.
Yep.
And sure, Bold will do it, no question. But what I see is there are leaders who want to level up, but they only want to level up where they're comfortable. Yeah. It's like maybe they're a big process person, and so they're looking at how do I structure practice better, or they're looking at, or a manager, they're like, how do I, learn how to do, we were just talking about this, like EOS, a great system out there for business. It's like, but it's also super easy and safe. You just follow these steps, you do these things, and yes, you have to do something different, but it doesn't require you to go inward and go think about me. And where am I weak and where am I strong, and start working on those things. What triggers me, what gets me super rattled, what throws me off my game, where am I not meeting performance metrics, what are my personal habits that are causing me to show up at work and not be the best. I love the high functioning executive who is also an alcoholic. And I say that because it's real. It's all over the place. But could you imagine if that high-functioning executive wasn't an alcoholic, they'd go change the freaking world. Mm-hmm. Because they would have so many more faculties. So what are those things, and alcohol's an easy one, but what are those things that we're doing that are causing us to not be at our high level? Are we digging into those? So it comes down to the head coach. Head coach has to grow. Yeah.
Angie Larkin, I'll do another plug for TCU. Angie Larkin, the head golf coach, women's golf coach for TCU. She's been there 25, 30 years now.
She's awesome.
Anyways, one of the most growth mindset women, people, coaches, hand down. That woman will read. She will do the work. She will take classes. She's constantly looking at herself, holding the standard, and hands down, I just love her. So talk about controllables. So what she does with her team, she does what she's asking her players to do. And this came out, Connor, with Vanitas on goals. And I know we got into the health, and I really do believe that there's something to be said, the foundational piece of every great coach, every great leader, you have to take care of yourself. You have to fill up. There's the health the component piece. So you take care of your body, you take care of your mind, you can take care of your people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's really good.
All right. Well, any other thoughts to wrap up the first of many?
I think the only thing I would add, Connor, to it is for the leaders out there who are already in their head about the excuse, they don't have time to do this. They don't have time to focus on this because just challenge. I was in that boat for a really long time, and one mindset shift really helped me, and I repeated it every single day. I'm a huge writer on the mirror person, so when I look in the mirror once a day to brush my teeth, I'll see it. And
once a day. You only brush your teeth once a day?
There's a mirror right behind his desk. He's just not seeing. He looks at himself constantly.
That's why I like these Zoom calls.
It's right in front of his desk.
No, so when I look in the mirror,
alone.
when I look in that mirror, it's never do it alone. Never do it alone. And because I don't have time for training. I don't have time to teach them how to think. I don't have time to hold them accountable or create accountability or create that culture that I want to see happen. Never do anything alone. If you know how to do it, take somebody else with you. Begin the journey of teaching them. And when I started doing that in business and in life, with my family, with my wife, there are so many things that started to open up, good conversations, because you're not just teaching people what to do or telling them what to do. You're teaching them how to think. You're teaching them how to act. You're teaching them how to solve problems. And you are also being a catalyst to their growth, which moves you up the level of leadership, speaking of John Maxwell. So if you're looking at where to start today, just don't do anything alone. Start taking people with you.
How.
There it is.
Not how. Yeah.
That's good.
Shout out to Dan Sullivan.
Always coming back around.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I don't know when this is going to come out, but Eric and Mary go crush it at TCU. Have a bunch of fun.
I'm so excited.
They're going to be amazing.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Driven Leadership Podcast. We are having a blast putting this thing together for you guys, and we want to hear from you. So if you have any questions or if you need any advice on a current scenario happening in your life, you can email us at info@drivenleadership.com. And, we talk a lot about the BOLD program and these other programs that we do. Those classes and those trainings are what Driven Leadership is all about. So if you want any info on upcoming classes, upcoming trainings, or just what it is we offer, you can visit us at drivenleadership.com or give us a call. We have the phone number there at the bottom of the website. So next week, we'll actually have David Roditi, the infamous David Roditi, with us on the podcast. So we're excited, and we'll see you next week.